We are picking up where we left off in lesson 4.8. Okay? Now, lesson 4.8. We talked about I yesterday. What is I?
Imaginary.
I is the imaginary unit, and it stands for square root of negative 1. If I is the square root of negative 1, which we used that yesterday, we didn't really use this one, but what's I squared then? Negative 1, because when you square a square root, it cancels out, you get negative 1. And then remember our complex number forms? This is all about A plus BI. So real plus imaginary part. Okay, so we're picking up, we finished up adding and subtracting yesterday.
Yes.
We're moving into multiplying. Now, I think I might have talked about this yesterday at the end of your class. How do I know it's multiplying as opposed to adding and subtracting? Yeah, parentheses are right next to each other, which indicates multiplication. On the previous section, there were addition and subtraction signs between them, which indicates adding and subtracting.
With the multiplication, like the parentheses being side by side, that's how it is with others.
Okay, so on A. And as we go through these guys, I want to make sure we get through a little bit of everything today. So I will be skipping some of the examples just because there's a lot, and my goal, more importantly than anything, is we get through a little bit of everything. As we look at A, how do I multiply 3i times negative 5 plus 2i? Distribute. Yep. I am looking for distribute. So 3i times negative 5. Negative 15i. 3i times 2i. 6i squared. Because I times I is going to be I squared. Now, do I get to leave it in this form? No. These are complex numbers. Everything we do today should be in the form A plus BI, which means a real part and an imaginary part, but we should never have I squareds in our answer. Because what do we know about I squared? Yeah. That I squared is a negative 1. Hello? No, it's 7th hour. No, he did not stay over, and yes, he was in 6th hour. You're welcome. Bye. Okay, so I squared was negative 1. So how does that change this? Yeah, so it's still negative 15i, but it's 6 times negative 1. And what is 6 times negative 1? Minus 6. So this is negative 15i minus 6. So anytime you see that I squared, replace it with negative 1, which basically, what did it do? You drop the I squared off and change the sign. Okay? Now, I don't remember exactly how picky Math Excel is. Officially, do I have this in A plus BI form? Officially, it's BI plus A. And we're supposed to have A plus BI. So if I reverse this, negative 6 minus 15i. And that's, I just can't remember. I know it has to be A plus BI form. So I do know certain things it won't allow. I just can't remember if it'll allow you to reverse the form or not. So you guys will find out. Okay, B. How do I multiply on B?
Foil?
Yep, it is FOIL. Okay, or if you prefer, it's just a whole bunch of distributing, right? Everything in the first parenthesis has to multiply by everything in the second parenthesis. But yes, in short, if you think well thinking FOIL, then by all means, let's FOIL. First, well then, 4 times everything in the other parenthesis. So 4 times negative 1. Negative 4.
4 times everything in the second parenthesis, then we get our answers, and then do we have to do 3i times the answers we got, or everything in parentheses?
Okay, so hang with me. So it's 4 times negative 1. 4 times negative 2i. 4 times negative 2i is negative 8i. So it's 4 times those two pieces, and then we have to repeat the process with 3i. So 3i times negative 1 minus 3i. 3i times minus 2i minus 6i squared. And we just did that in FOIL order also. So, okay, clean up. Okay, we have like terms in the middle there. Okay, so I'm just going to carry down my negative 4. Minus 8i minus 3i. Minus 11i.
Could that be squared or no?
No. It's just like adding x's. You just keep the variable along.
Then you can make it minus 6. Yeah, but you would be plus 6.
Oh.
Okay, so the I squared does become negative 1. But when the I squared becomes negative 1, and you're multiplying the negative 6 times the negative 1, it becomes plus 6. So I have negative 4 minus 11i plus 6. Like terms of the constants, negative 4 and 6. Negative 4 plus 6 is 2. So final answer? 2 minus 11i. Coming together? Okay, C. How do I multiply 7i times 3i? Do I FOIL? No, because it's just a 7i and a 3i. Do I distribute? No, just multiply. What is 7i times 3i? 21i squared. Can I leave that as my answer? What do you know about I squared? So this is 21 times negative 1, which is negative 21. Okay. I'm going to skip the last example and move on to the next part. Again, my goal is to make sure we get through of a little bit of everything. So we added and subtracted. Then we multiplied. So now we have to divide. You can tell these are all division problems because as you look at them, you see fraction bars, right? Something on top divided by the bottom. Now, here's the deal though. Technically, they're division problems, but we're not going to really do any division. Okay? In order to divide complex numbers, notice the comment here, it says you multiply top and bottom of the fraction by the conjugate. Okay? Conjugate. So when we talk conjugate, it's conjugate of the denominator. The opposite sign, so the sign in the middle changes. So for instance, if your denominator is 5 plus 2i, the conjugate would be 5 minus 2i.
It's not going to be the sign before, so it's going to be like negative 5.
No, it's just the sign in the middle, which is the sign in front of the I term. Like example A?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to talk about it. And here's the deal, guys. The reason we're doing this, okay, you can't leave i's in the denominator. I don't know what you guys remember about square roots in Algebra 1, but in Algebra 1, you learned that you're not allowed to leave square roots in the denominator. Okay, same thing here. I is the square root of negative 1. We can't leave that in the denominator. So the goal is to get rid of it. Now, as we look at example A, we're kind of starting with a weird example. 3i. There's a couple of different ways we can do this. My recommendation is 3i. What is 3i in my a plus bi form?
3 times the square root of
No, just
never mind. I was just not doing it.
what is 3i in a plus bi form? What? Right, it's the bi part, so what's the real part? 0. So this is, can we agree that denominator essentially says 0 plus 3i? So what would be the conjugate of 0 plus 3i? 0 minus 3i. So here, since my denominator is 3i, what do I need to multiply by? 0 minus 3i, which is negative 3i. What I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. Now, I'll be honest, on this particular problem, that's not the only option. If you multiplied by positive 3i, it would actually work out okay. And you actually could just multiply by I, and that would work out okay. But for me, for consistency's sake, to have all the problems be the same, I'm just going to teach it this way. So, how do I multiply this negative 3i on the top? Yeah, we're distributing. Negative 3i times 9. Negative 27i. 12i times negative 3i. Minus 36i squared. All over, what's 3i times negative 3i? Minus 9i squared. Now, do I get to leave it like that? No, we got to clean up. There's still i's in the denominator, so I can't leave it like that. Let's. Not yet. And I guess you could, but that's not how I'm going to have us think about it. Let's go the direction of what about these I squareds? I squared is negative 1. And so that's the direction I'm going to go, is that my I squared is replaced with negative 1. So what do you know about minus 36i squared? It's going to be plus 36 because I squared, so negative 1 times negative 36 becomes plus 36. Denominator, what is negative 9i squared? Plus 9 because I squared is negative 1, so plus 9. Do I get to stop here? No. What does that 9 have to go with?
36.
Has to go with both pieces. That one denominator goes with everything in the numerator. So I'm going to split it up as negative 27i divided by 9 plus 36 divided by 9. And thus making the point that 9 goes in both denominators. Now, obviously, if you can divide, you want to go that next step. What is negative 27i divided by 9? Negative 3i plus 36 divided by 9? 4.
12. I don't know.
Am I done?
No. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you can flip it.
Okay. So if you want to get technical, am I in A plus BI form? No, we're in BI plus A. So if you reverse this, it becomes positive 4 minus 3i.
These are not that hard. I like that.
It's not that they're exceptionally difficult necessarily, but there's a lot of steps, there's a lot of numbers to keep straight. So, okay, let's try B. 2 plus 3i over 1 minus 4i. So what do you have to think here? Okay, conjugate. What is the conjugate? Okay, conjugate of the denominator, 1 minus 4i, is 1 plus 4i. What I multiply the denominator by? You multiply the numerator by. How do I multiply these?
Foil. Do the one first, then do the foil.
Distribute, FOIL, whichever word makes you happy there. So, 2 times 1, 2. 2 times 4i, 8i. 3i times 1, 3i. 3i times 4i. 12i squared. Okay.
I did. Oh, I did the one first. I mean, no, finish it.
Denominator. 1 times 1. 1. 1 times 4i. 4i. Negative 4i times 1. Minus 4i. Minus 4i times positive 4i. Minus 16i squared. And again, it's those tiny mistakes that will get you.
As soon as I said it, though, I corrected it.
Okay, what do you see in the numerator? Okay. 8i and 3i is 11i. So we still have the 2 plus the 11i. What about 12i squared? Okay, I squared becomes negative 1. 12 times negative 1 becomes minus 12. Denominator. What do you notice about the 4i's? They cancel. If you have done this correctly, the whole point of conjugates is the middle term, which will cancel out. If you don't do it correctly, then they might not. So I'm going to carry down my 1. What is minus 16i squared? Plus 16? Because, again, the I squared is negative 1. Clean up again. Okay. Stella's skipping and doing the denominator. 1 plus 16 is 17. Okay, got it. Numerator? Okay. 2 and minus 12 is negative 10 plus 11i. Am I done?
Yeah, you can't go any further.
Okay, so noticing, does 17 go into 10 or 11?
No.
Does not. However, am I in A plus BI form?
Well, I did 11i minus 10.
I mean, you are, but divided by a number.
Okay, so here's the deal. We need to split this so it's 2 pieces. So we have just an A piece and just a BI piece. What's that 17 go with? The 10 and the 11. So when I split this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the 17 under both pieces. So I'm going to write negative 10 over 17 plus 11i over 17. When I say 11i over 17, you have 2 options. That I can go in the numerator with the 11, or it can go just like an x would just beside the fraction. The place it does not go is it does not go in the denominator. I don't remember. Sorry. Yeah, I don't remember where Math Excel wants it, or if Math Excel cares.
So it's okay if we put it on the numerator, right?
Yes, it should be. I feel like Math Excel would let you put it in the numerator or next to the fraction. Again, what it cannot be is it cannot just be in the denominator. Right. Okay.
So then in every one, except for the ones that are 0, plus, or 0, whatever, it should cancel the middle terms?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the whole idea of conjugates.
Okay.
When you multiply 2 conjugates, the middle terms cancel. How do you feel about those?
Pretty good.
Because if you're okay with those, we can go ahead and skip to the next page. Or we can try another one of those. Okay, how about we'll see where we're at time-wise at the end. Although I think we're doing okay on time, but let's go ahead and flip to the back because we haven't solved any equations yet. We haven't solved any equation. So now, technically, these are methods you've already seen. Example 6 comes from lesson 4.6. Example 7 comes from lesson 4.7. So, coincidence, honestly, but 2x squared plus 32 equals 0. How do we solve? What do you remember?
Well, I know that 2 is A and 32 is C. We need 0, but we have no B, and that means that we have to do something special.
Well, notice it says solving using square roots. Because there is no B term, because there's no x term, you only have x squared term and number terms. How do you get x squared by itself?
Put 32 over.
Okay. I would say subtract 32 over first. So if I subtract 32 over, I now have 2x squared equals negative 32. How do I continue to get x squared by itself? Divide by 2 first. So now x squared equals negative 16. Now that we have x squared by itself, take the square root. If you take the square root of the left, take the square root of the right. What's the square root of x squared? X. What's the square root of negative 16?
4. Oh, plus or minus 4. 4. 4 negative 4. There's a negative inside the square root, which there can't be.
Oh, no
solution?
No, it's the imaginary number.
It has to be like 4.
Okay, so back in lesson 4.6 when we did this, okay, I've let you guys argue enough. Back in lesson 4.6 when we did this, if we got the square root of a negative number, we said no solution because there was no real solutions. But now we're in lesson 4.8 and we know imaginary numbers. Exactly. So, square root of negative 16. Guys, do you remember how I was breaking this up yesterday into square root of negative 1 times square root of 16? Yeah, that's what you need to think of. What is the square root of negative 1? I. What's the square root of 16? 4. So what are my answers? 4i and negative 4i. Or in other words, plus or minus 4i. So, remember, we're still solving an equation. When you take the square root, when you're solving an equation, you have to consider both possibilities, plus or minus 4i. Definitely. Actually, I was just going to we can do B and C. They're quick, so. Okay. 5x squared plus 20 equals 0. How do I do B? Okay. Subtract 20. So now I have 5x squared equals negative 20. Continue to get x squared by itself. Divide by 5. X squared equals negative 4. Take the square root. Square root of negative 4. Okay, so plus or minus, because we're in an equation setting. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of that negative is I. Was that one a little bit better? And C. X squared plus 15 equals 0. How do I solve for x squared? Subtract the 15. So x squared equals negative 15. Take the if x squared equals negative 15, what do I do? Square root it. What's the square root of negative 15? except I'm going to put my I out front. So square root, first of all, it's plus or minus. Square root of that negative 1 is an I. I don't know the square root of 15, so it's going to stay square root of 15. Similar to what we did on some of them yesterday. The I put it out front because I don't want to have to judge is it or isn't it not under the radical. Technically, it could go at the end. Nothing says it couldn't. I'm assuming MathXL will accept it either way. But as always, you can't judge MathXL.
I'm glad we did that last one.
Okay. One last section. So notice, the difference between the last examples and these examples is we have added back in a B term. So, now the directions kind of give it up to you. We're solving using quadratic formula. Do you remember your quadratic formula?
Negative b square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a.
And that is why we raise our hand.
Now, one question. Did you guys get the B plus or minus there in the middle?
Yes.
Okay, so negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
I think Estella really did not learn the song like she was supposed to.
What has to be true?
You missed this song.
She missed the song. End of class. Okay. Guys, quadratic formula. What has to be true before I can use the quadratic formula? My equation has to equal 0. So, okay. Example A is where I'm going here. 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 over a equals 0. So,
A is 2, B is negative 3, and C is 5.
A is 2. B is negative 3. C is 5. Old news?
Yep. Then just put those in your little quadratic formula.
Okay. X equals negative B. What's negative B? Positive 3. Plus or minus square root B squared. Negative 3 squared minus 4AC. So minus 4 times 2 times 5. All over 2A, 2 times 2. Okay. 3 plus or minus. What's negative 3 squared? 9. In terms of signs, there's just one minus sign, so it's minus. 4 times 2 times 5. 40. All over 2 times 2, which is 4.
Okay, I figured it out. I'm done.
3 plus or minus square root of, what's 9 minus 40?
Negative 31.
Negative 31. All over 4. Can you do anything with that square root?
Yes, you have to do the I thing, so it's going to be I square root of
Okay.
I liked it better when we stopped that.
So instead of square root of 31, square root of 31 itself, we can't do anything, but there's that negative. When you see a negative under the radical, pull it out as an I. So now I'm going to rewrite it as 3 plus or minus I square root of 31 all over 4.
She's Oh, yeah.
MathXL, I do not think, would accept this because they are specifically going to state express your answer in complex form. A plus BI. So A plus BI, what do we know about this for? It goes with both. So 3/4 plus or minus square root of 31 over 4 I. So meaning I put my I just outside the fraction, or you can leave your I up with the radical. Both would work. You should be able to.
Flip flop that so that it's in. Oh no, that isn't.
Did you just move it to show us that it'd be okay if we did have to?
You should be able to do it either way, I believe.
Oh, I think I missed.
Okay, here, for me, you can do it either way. Again, I don't remember exactly what Math Excel wanted. Okay. One more of these, and I'm going to pick C. I mean, I can tell you the answer to B, or you can check your answer for B, but I want to pick C as the one to do. Unless you really want to do both of them.
No.
But I don't think we need to. Okay. Example C, what's your question?
Does it equal 0?
Does it equal 0?
Yes.
So what do I need to think?
Quadratic formula. So
I'm going to write down my ABCs. A is 1, B is -4, C is 5. Okay. X equals -B, so +4, plus or minus, square root, B squared, -4 squared, minus 4 times A times C. So 4 times 1 times 5 over 2A, 2 times 1.
I always forget that part. The over 2A.
And that's important because you get it wrong if you forget it.
Yep.
Okay, clean up under that radical. 4 plus or minus, -4 squared is 16. Minus 4 times 1 times 5, so minus 20, all over 2. 4 plus or minus the square root. 16 minus 20 is -4, all over 2.
separate that negative and the whole.
Okay. What do you know about the square root of -4?
It is 2.
Okay, the square root of the negative is I. The square root of 4 is 2. So I'm going to write this as 4 plus or minus 2I all over 2.
Divide by 2.
Okay, and it's dividing both of them by 2 or splitting them up, right? So I'm going to write it as 4 over 2 plus or minus 2I over 2 because we're dividing both by 2. Final answer. Okay, 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2I divided by 2 is I. So 2 plus or minus I. Okay. Do we have the idea on everything?
Yes.
We've seen a little bit of everything. Your homework is lesson 4.8 in Math Excel. It was available last night, so you may have already started. You need to finish it for Monday. B is 1/6 plus or minus the square root of 23 over 6 times I.
Did you get it right?
I did.
Sign out.
Let's see if it's on there for 30 minutes.